Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever wondered about the absolute true cost of ignoring really good advice? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into an ancient text that maps out the exact anatomy of a spectacularly disastrous decision. We're going to explore this fascinating narrative of power, pride, and just how fragile diplomacy can really be. We'll see how a seemingly tiny act of arrogance can snowball into unimaginable consequences. This isn't just some dusty ancient history, you know? It is a total masterclass in human behavior and the devastating ripple effects of hubris.
We're actually going to skip the traditional agenda today because I want to plunge you right straight into this gripping central question. How did a single, silent gesture of disrespect trigger a devastating curse and set the stage for an epic war? We're looking at a masterfully tense moment from an ancient epic where the fate of an entire kingdom hangs, not on a massive battlefield clash, but literally on the silent body language of one arrogant prince in a throne room.
Part 1, The Prophet's Warning. Okay, let's dive into this. Our story kicks off with a desperate father. King Dhritarashtra's kingdom is teetering right on the edge of crisis, and it's all thanks to his wicked son, Duryodhana. Seeking some kind of guidance, the king consults the ultra-wise sage, Vyasa. Vyasa promises that a highly respected advisor named Maitreya is already on his way to intervene and basically save the kingdom from itself.
But here's the catch. Vyasa leaves a ticking time bomb in the room before this sage even shows up. He explicitly warns the king, if the prince ignores Maitreya's recommendation, the sage will absolutely curse him in anger. It's just brilliant foreshadowing. As we watch this diplomatic meeting unfold, we, the audience, are uniquely aware of these catastrophic stakes, while the arrogant prince is just completely oblivious.
Part 2, The Case for Peace. So the way-worn sage, Rishi Maitreya, finally arrives. The king, clearly sweating that warning he just got, welcomes this chief of sages with absolute top-tier respect. He anxiously asks about the welfare of the Pandavas. They're the rival faction in this looming war. The king is doing everything completely by the book here to keep the peace and set a really respectful tone. But Maitreya, he is not here for mere pleasantries. He immediately holds the king accountable for the grave errors that have already gone down in his court. He uses this incredibly powerful metaphor, calling the king the stake at which bulls are tied. Basically, he's reminding Dhritarashtra that as the ruler, he has the ultimate power to punish and reward. Maitreya is totally stripping away the king's plausible deniability here, demanding to know why a leader with so much grounding authority is just passively overlooking a great evil that's about to destroy everyone. Then, Maitreya strategically shifts his intense focus right onto the wrathful prince, Duryodhana. Now, what's really interesting about this approach is how Maitreya uses sheer logic. He lays out this terrifying resume of the rival Pandavas, their absolute prowess in war, bodies literally as hard as thunderbolts, their unshakable word, and their reputation as slayers of fierce demons and monsters. He is painting a vivid, undeniable picture of an unwinnable war. He's really hoping self-preservation will kick in where morality totally failed.
To emphasize the sheer, mind-boggling scale of this enemy, Maitreya throws out a very specific metric of power. He points out that these warriors aren't just skilled, they are physically gifted with the raw, terrifying strength of 10,000 elephants. To put that into perspective, that number is specifically meant to absolutely shatter any delusions of grandeur Duryodhana might be clinging to. It's a massive, quantitative reality check dropped right in the middle of this diplomatic intervention.
And Maitreya doesn't just stop at raw numbers either. He walks them through a staggering monster-slaying track record. He breaks down how the warrior Bhima effortlessly crushed fearsome beasts like Hidimba and Kirmira, and took down mighty opposing warriors like Jarasandha. He's verbally demonstrating exactly what Duryodhana is going up against. I mean, it's a flawless, purely logical argument for peace.
Part 3, The Silent Insult. So now, we shift our narrative focus directly onto Duryodhana's reaction. And it is vital to note here that the text explicitly tells us Maitreya addressed the prince with soft words. Despite all those terrifying facts he just laid out, the sage's tone was deliberate and really careful. He actively asked Duryodhana to listen for his own good, to avoid a quarrel, and to just let go of his anger. The diplomatic table was perfectly set for de-escalation. And this brilliantly illustrates the shocking contrast of what happens next. While Maitreya is offering soft words and super-wise counsel, Duryodhana doesn't even offer a counterargument. He doesn't yell. In fact, he spake not a word. Instead, he hangs his head, aggressively slaps his own thigh, which is described as resembling an elephant's trunk, and smilingly begins to scratch the dirt with his foot. It is a calculated, deeply insulting physical dismissal of literally everything the sage just offered. This silent gesture is the absolute textbook embodiment of hubris. It's that exaggerated pride and self-confidence that completely blinds a person to reality and inevitably leads to a severe downfall. Think about it. Duryodhana is facing a man who represents ultimate spiritual authority, a guy offering him a perfectly logical way out of fighting enemies with the strength of 10,000 elephants. And yet, his pride is so overwhelming that he chooses to smilingly scratch the earth, essentially mocking the peace offering. It really shows us the devastating cost of blinding, outright disrespect.
Part 4. The Thigh-Shattering Curse. This brings us right to the climax of the encounter. Beholding this silent slight, Maitreya's soft demeanor completely vanishes. The text describes him as overwhelmed by wrath, his eyes literally turning red in anger. As if commissioned by fate itself, the sage touches water, which is a traditional ritualistic gesture to solemnize an oath or a curse, and he sets his mind to doom this arrogant prince. That ticking time bomb Vyasa warned us about at the very beginning, yeah, it just detonated.
The curse is swift, and it is violently specific. Because he slighted the council, Maitreya decrees, "In the great war which shall spring out of the wrongs perpetrated by thee, the mighty Bhima shall smash that thigh of thine with a stroke of his mace." Notice the incredible poetic justice here. The curse directly targets the very same thigh that Duryodhana just slapped in his arrogant display of defiance. Talk about instant karma.
Part 5. A final loophole. Instantly, absolute chaos erupts in the room. King Dhritarashtra, terrified that the prophecy has just come true, frantically starts trying to pacify the sage, basically begging for a way to ensure this horrific vision doesn't happen. And right here, the narrative provides a super fascinating twist. Maitreya doesn't revoke the curse, but he does offer a surprising, conditional escape hatch, a final loophole to the doom he just pronounced.
So, the crucial point is this. The curse is not some absolute, unavoidable fate. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a conditional trigger. It takes effect only if Duryodhana maintains his insolent path toward war. But if he simply concludes peace with the Pandavas, the doom is broken entirely. This completely transforms the curse from a simple punishment into the ultimate, high-stakes test of free will, testing his willingness to choose peace over his own pride.
The immediate aftermath is incredibly tense. The king desperately tries to change the subject, trying to gauge the actual might of Bhima by asking about the monster Kirmira. But Maitreya? He's done. He refuses to speak, defers to another advisor, and just walks away. Meanwhile, the arrogant Duryodhana, who was literally smiling just moments ago, finally walks out, visibly perturbed and shaken by the massive reality of the doom now hanging over his head.
Which leaves us right here, staring directly at the core conflict of human nature versus logical survival. Will Duryodhana swallow his immense pride, take the loophole offered to him, and break the curse by making peace? Or will his stubborn silence and hubris lead his kingdom inevitably into a world-ending war? It's a profound reminder that sometimes, the most destructive forces out there aren't armies or weapons. They're our own inability to listen, to check our egos, and to accept the peace that is sitting right in front of us. Thank you so much for diving into this fascinating text with me today.